Welcome to Journeys, a series featuring in-depth conversations with visionaries shaping the landscape of real estate and destinations. We uncover the personal stories, challenges, and innovative approaches that have defined the remarkable careers of top executives and the unique properties they create. In this captivating episode, Journeys turns its spotlight on Ellie Chamberland, a real estate trailblazer known for her transformative placemaking marketing. Ellie reveals the strategy behind the Seaport, its offerings of incredible cuisine, shopping, live entertainment, and competitive gaming fun for locals and tourists alike. And oh my gosh, that view. Wait until you see it. Ellie is the VP of Marketing at Hughes, and she shares her professional story for us and the details of her leap into place marketing and real estate from an unlikely past. Children's publishing. She takes us on a tour of the Seaport and her highly successful, innovative approach to breathing new life into one of New York City's most iconic landmarks. So you grew up in Utah and then moved here to New York City. Tell me a little bit about what brought you here.
Yeah, I had done a study abroad in college. I lived in Berlin for a period of time. And then when I got back to Utah, it was just I think it's time for something different. I want to go experience something new, and had visited New York as a kid and always wanted to live here and thought, you know what? Why not now? Like, nothing's holding me in Utah, so might as well just pick up and do it. So I sold all my stuff and I moved here without a job and figured it out.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's pretty brave. And so at that point, were you in children's publishing still, or?
So that's actually when I started in children's publishing. Before I moved to New York, I was working during college and sort of was hopping around doing different things. I worked in construction. I worked for an intellectual property law firm. I worked for an interpreter services department at the local hospital. So it was a very non-linear sort of career path for me. And when I got to New York, I got my job at Scholastic Publishing. I worked in the book clubs division. And for me, that was a very nostalgic thing. I had grown up with Scholastic books. I had loved, circling the books in the flyer.
Oh, the book fairs.
Yes, yeah. It's like something that's, I think, part of everyone's experience during their childhood. And so it was amazing being able to work for them finally, when I came to the big city and that was my first job here. It was just a really, really exciting experience.
I wonder if that was what made Amazon so successful in the beginning. You have that feeling as a kid of like, the books are here, and they,
yeah.
I wonder.
Yeah, I think
Scholastic
so.
did that.
Yeah, everybody loves to get something in the mail, right?
Right.
I mean, everybody loves a delivery, a package, whether it's, a written card or something. So I think so. The book box day was always like such a big deal.
And so was there something about that job that you loved that made you move into real estate? I mean, how did you get from one to the other?
How do you go from children's publishing to real estate?
Right, it's not the natural.
No, definitely not. And real estate was never something that I had pictured myself in. But when I was at Scholastic, one of the things that I loved about the brand was the brand itself. Like, Scholastic has such a strong brand, and from a marketing perspective, being able to work there and understand how they build the brand, how they maintain the brand, kind of staying true to the brand, from a marketing perspective was really interesting and unique, and was something that I still now bring with me kind of moving forward. But I hit my ceiling there. It was time. I wasn't growing. I wasn't learning anything new. I had kind of grown stagnant, which was great in some ways because I knew everything, and it was a very easy thing to be in. But it was time to move on and to have a new challenge. And so I had been introduced to my now boss, and he shared with me, all the things that Hughes was doing. I was able to come down into the Seaport and see this amazing neighborhood myself. And so it made sense to make the leap.
Interesting. And so what was it like when you first got into real estate and you started here in this corporate environment?
Yeah.
Was it a culture shock? Or, I mean, I guess you're used to a culture shock. You kind of jump in feet first. Head first.
Yeah, it was definitely different. I think the nice thing about marketing in a lot of ways is the basics of marketing, the fundamentals of marketing apply no matter what industry you're in, right? You come into a place, you learn who your customer is and understand them. You understand your product, learn your product, and then you figure out, okay, how do we connect those two things and tell that story and build this brand? And so I think all of those fundamentals that I had learned at Scholastic, I could easily translate over to real estate. It was just learning the business and then understanding who our customer was here and how do we then build this community and continue to sort of grow that here in real estate.
So tell me a little bit about what that was like applying that to the South Street Seaport. I mean, obviously it's gorgeous and wonderful.
Yeah.
What were some of the things that kind of struck you to market from the beginning?
Yeah. I think, for us, it's about continuing to build the community. I talk about placemaking sometimes. I use that in my title occasionally.
Yes, I need to know, what is placemaking?
What is
How do you define it? I saw it on your LinkedIn. I think it's a really interesting phrase that people keep using, or word.
Yeah, it's such a buzzword, I feel like, in real estate, right? So to me, placemaking is about building a quality place. But what is a quality place, right? It's a place that people want to be. It's a place that people want to spend their time. And it's really about building out a community where you're bringing people together and that it's a place that they feel welcome, right? You want to build this welcoming environment. And so what we do here at the Seaport, we host a lot of programming and events, a lot of free community programming. We do yoga classes and kids and family programming and free music festivals. So we're always finding ways to bring people together within the space. And then thinking about how do we make the space itself more comfortable and hospitable, and public seating and lighting, and how do you sort of structure the space in a way, the place between the buildings, so people feel comfortable coming here and being in the space.
So before we came up this morning, we were walking around the Seaport a little, and we saw tons of people with their dogs running around. So it gave me the feeling you've achieved what you wanted to.
Yeah, I think that's the thing about placemaking too, is you're never done. It's more about the process of building that than it is about the finished product, because we have to continue to evolve with what people need. And I think that we saw that so acutely during COVID, right? There was this experience that everyone in the world was having at the same time, and it restricted what people were used to doing and sort of forced this hard reset on what we could do and what we expected. And so I think we were in this unique position because we have so much outdoor space that we could offer a safe haven for New Yorkers to get outside of their tiny apartments where we were sitting for a lot of time and out kind of into the world in a safe way. And then how do we then continue that trend, I guess, now, or how do we continue to build on that now that people's expectations have changed? People are working from home more. How do you continue to sort of evolve the experience to meet those needs?
So I feel like after COVID, there have been a lot of new trends and not a lot of things that have, people say the world sped up 10 years in a day, which is, people getting to work from home and some of the things we just talked about. Tell me a little bit about some of the things that might have impacted the development here, and maybe some of the kind of interesting insights that somebody couldn't get if they didn't get a chance to sit and talk to you.
Yeah. I think that we're seeing sort of this interesting resurgence of retail, physical retail stores, right? There's all that conversation around Amazon and okay, retail's dead and it's all online and e-commerce and all of these things. But I think that when we lost the ability to go out and experience those things in person, that made us realize a little bit more how much we love actually going out and being in a store and touching things in real life. But I think that some of the trends that we're seeing now, especially in retail and some of the experiences we're bringing to the Seaport, is that there's a focus on experiential, right? It's really about the experience that you have when you're there. So it's not enough anymore to just open a retail store and have product there displayed, but what else happens in the space? How do you sort of romance it a little bit, so when people are coming in, it really is unique, and giving them something that they can't find online, or when they're doing their browsing on their phone. And so when we look at our own retail here, and as we're talking with our brokers and figuring out the right mix, it's things that are unique, things that you can experience online. There was an article in the Commercial Observer over the summer about competitive socializing, and the rise of the axe throwing places and mini golf and all of these experiences that bring people together. We have that here in the Seaport now with the Lawn Club. So finding these sort of unique experiences, I think, is going to continue to perpetuate in the future.
It's been interesting to see how everybody's starting to play pickleball during the
Yes,
pandemic,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's like finding these ways where people now want to, they don't want to just sit and have a drink anymore. They want to be active and doing things. And so how do you continue to leverage that? I think being flexible too in how we're structuring our deals is giving us this unique opportunity. We want to have sort of our mainstay retailers here, but then we're also looking at pop-up experiences and how can you sort of stay fresh and keep bringing new things into the neighborhood. And it's a good way to test things. We're able to see if a pop-up is doing really, really well, okay, they should probably be here long term. If it's not something that has sort of that momentum moving forward, okay, they're here for 6 months and then we're going to try something different. So it gives us some of that opportunity to sort of test and refine to also figure out what's right here.
So my favorite thing to do in these sessions is to really learn a little bit about what has made you so successful and give back, give that advice to the next generation coming up in real estate. Tell me a little bit about what you're particularly proud of, what maybe some trials and tribulations.
Yeah. I think, one of the things that I learned early in my career is that no task is too small. And don't be afraid to be doing things that are sort of outside of your job description, right? I think a lot of people will say, well, that's not my role, so I'm not going to touch it. But that's where I've learned and grown the most, is sort of taking those opportunities and pulling them into my ecosystem and being able to learn about different parts of the business that maybe aren't traditionally tied to marketing. But it helps me have a better picture of the full view, and helps me be better at marketing to know those things like leasing, or some of these other areas where maybe marketing isn't traditionally sitting at the table, but it helps us build a stronger product. I would also say, and this is something that was really hard for me to learn as a type A personality, but testing, and not being afraid to fail. You will have failures. There will be things that don't go the way that you want them to, and being able to embrace that and learn something from the failure and then evolve from that, I think, is so important. And the only way that you really grow as a person, as a human, and as a leader is to be able to do hard things and give yourself challenges, so it forces you to kind of grow out of your comfort zone.
Were there any particular passions you had when you were younger that you feel like led you to here?
Oh man. I mean, I've always loved food and cooking and, sort of getting together with people around food. So it's very apt now that I'm working this environment that's very hospitality focused. That definitely is something that I appreciate a lot about my job. And it's great. I get to eat at these wonderful restaurants and experience these things that I've always wanted to. So.
And do you think that a lot of that applies to office space now? I mean, I know that's not kind of the core of what you do, but I'm always interested in how people think about getting somebody back into the office, and I feel like it's just kind of trendy and topical. So.
Yeah. I mean, I think, look, we learned that we can do a lot of our job at home, right, and remote. But there really, and I know this sounds a little cliche, but there's nothing that replaces that human interaction, right? Like bringing people together, and we're so focused on community here at the Seaport and bringing the community together that we have to do that ourselves as a company as well. And there's nothing that can replace that. But that being said, I think the flexibility that we have now, and the realization or the recognition that people have life outside of work too, and that flexibility that we now have, has made it much easier for us, or at least for me specifically, to come into the office. And I enjoy coming into the office now.
Well, your office is beautiful.
That
it's easy to come here.
That helps. But it's also in a neighborhood that I love to be in. So I'm coming to a destination that I want to spend time in even when I'm not working. So, I think that helps immensely, and that's something that we're seeing, especially in the office spaces, building office in the places that people want to go and spend their time.
Thank you. Well, I would love to just hear any last bits of advice you might have for the next generation coming into, who might want to build a career in marketing and real estate. Anything in particular that, I think I love don't be afraid to fail. I feel like that is
that's a big one.
Yeah.
I would say also, network. Go out, meet people. You never know when you're gonna run into somebody again, or when you're gonna be working with someone. And so the more open you are to meeting new people and understanding what they're doing, I think down the line it always helps you to make those connections. So
I love that. Ellie, thank you so much for spending this time with us today, and I really can't wait to see what's next.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. It's been great to show off the neighborhood. I'm looking forward to the future here at the Seaport.